what's up everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk. Thank you for watching. Today is a big episode. A lot of things are happening. The 53-man roster has been set, kind of. The practice squad has been set, kind of. Lots of cuts, lots of additions, lots of people moving and going back and forth. But right now, it looks like we've got our squad going into the 2020 season. So, let's just get to it. First of all, you can also find me on Instagram at LA Rams Talk. You can find me on Twitter at Real LA Rams Talk. Hit me up on both of those platforms. Messaging, that's the best way to get a hold of me. You can also find me on Fan to Fan Network. I'm going to pin a comment in this, and so it's where you can go and you see me talking to all the other creators for the different teams. I plan on doing something with a guy named Law Nation, who is me, way bigger following, but he's for the Cowboys. So we're going to have some real talk about the matchup coming up on the 13th, Rams versus Cowboys. Rams versus Cowboys, this Sunday coming up. I can't believe it. It's crazy. Anyways, big shout out to all the new subscribers, all the old subscribers, all the mid-range subscribers. Thank you for jumping on board. This week I'm gonna do you've got this episode. We're gonna do kind of like a top 10 concerns, breakouts, all this thing episode, and a preview for the Dallas Cowboys game. So get ready. Also, I've been making a lot of upgrades to the studio. You can't see it, you can't tell now, but it's happening. Sound, light, background, all this stuff. So over the course of the season, the production is going to get much, much better. So yeah, there you go. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Turn the notifications on. I also have the community tab. So if you're in the app and you got the home screen, you're scrolling, I'm going to be posting more regularly. I'll let you know when I'm going on live stream. So maybe we even do a live stream before the Sunday game. We can just talk about everything, whatever you guys want to talk about. So yeah, let's get right to it. The one thing, after all of these cuts and all the additions to the active roster, the thing that stands out the most is that the Rams are the third youngest team in the NFL behind Jacksonville and Miami. So when you look at that, two things come to mind. Number one, because the Rams have so much money invested in just a couple players, they have to go young. They have to, right? And the other thing is that, because they have to go young and they don't have a lot of money, are they at a crossroads? Are they rebuilding? What are they doing? I mean, I feel like a lot of this is like they would love to keep Corey Littleton. He's kind of young, but they couldn't. They had to make decisions. So anyways, very interesting. I mean, you look at Jacksonville and Miami, you're like, whoa, Rams are with them. So the Whitworth is the only guy over 32 years old. That's pretty crazy. Let's just get right to it. So, they made the cuts. They brought the active roster down to 52. Then they added another guy. So instead of going through all the different transactions, let's just go position group by position group. So quarterback is no surprise. We've got Goff and Wolford, and then they signed Bryce Perkins to the practice squad, and he cleared waivers, so that's good to go. We'll get to the practice squad later. But where the most movement, I guess, has been on the offensive side has been with the running backs. So if you've watched this episode, if you've watched Rams Talk in the past, and I was talking about UDFAs, the offense and the defense, you can find the offensive one right here. And that's where I talked about, Xavier Jones making the roster. So I felt early on that Xavier Jones had the juice from SMU. I like John Kelly, but I don't think he really was. He's a smaller guy, but he wasn't explosive. He wasn't like a bowling ball, kind of like Maurice Jones-Drew. So he didn't, pass protection. He struggled a lot with pass protection. So it wasn't like he was a player that had one discernible trait that kind of set him apart. So that's why he was always in the practice squad. And I kind of feel like if you're on the practice squad 2-3 years in a row, and you're really just on the bubble and an emergency back. And I think with Xavier Jones, he just brings more to the table. He's a little more explosive. He's a little bigger. He had a better production in college. So Xavier Jones to me stood out. I think I feel like if there wasn't a pandemic, he probably would have been drafted, even though John Kelly was drafted. So Xavier Jones, having them keep Xavier Jones does not surprise me at all. So essentially you've got Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, Xavier Jones, and they picked up a new guy, Raymond Calais Jr. from the Bucs. He was a 7th round draft pick from the Bucs, but when they signed Leonard Fournette, he became expendable, so they didn't protect him, or they brought him back to the practice squad. But what is being called the fastest poaching in practice squad history is what the Rams did with him. And so what happens is if you want to claim someone from another team's practice squad, that means you have to put them on your active roster for at least the first 3 weeks, since you acquire them. So that's why you don't see a lot of guys get poached. You can't just take a guy from someone else's practice squad and put him on your practice squad. That you got to basically, you're making an investment. So they brought him over, and I think that means that they probably feel that Darrell Henderson's injury might linger and that he won't be ready for week 1, and this is a depth move. So you have Brown, you have Akers, Jones, and Calais. They also like Calais Jr. a lot for returns. If you look at tape of his on Twitter, you just type his name into Twitter, he's busting returns. He was the I want to say first team returner for the Sun Belt, and he was averaging 28.5 yards per return, kick return. So he's a fast guy. He's a burner. So I think he's there as an emergency depth for running back, but he's more or less an option in the return game. Raymond Calais Jr. So, it's interesting. Just going back to Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. Here we go again with Darrell Henderson being injured. I get asked a lot about Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson for fantasy, and I feel that Darrell Henderson, if you can't stay on the field, the game is going to pass you by, and I feel like Cam Akers is passing Darrell Henderson by for no fault of Darrell Henderson's. He's just not healthy. So who knows when we're going to get Hendo back, but that's how it's looking right now. Active roster: Brown, Akers, Henderson, Jones, Calais. Calais came in, I think he was the 5th. So they signed him. So they had originally signed 50 or had 52 guys on the active roster. Then they signed Justin Hollins, a linebacker from Denver, off of waivers to make it 53, but then they signed Raymond Calais. So what are they doing? So there's going to be an odd man out. I don't know who that is. Right now everyone's sleeping in LA, so I think when they wake up we'll find out what's going on there. So that is that for the running backs. Now when you go to the receivers, yes, we all know it's going to be Woods, Kupp, J-Ray, Van Jefferson, right? Then Simba Webster was kind of the guy everyone was thinking about would be the 5th. That is correct. He made it. They like him also as a return guy, but he also shined a lot in practice. And then there was people thought it was just going to cut off at 5. But another guy that I predicted in the offensive UDFA show, you can find again right here, Tristan Jackson out of Syracuse. Now, he was a guy who transferred, and his junior year he played in Syracuse, over 1,000 yards, I think 11 TDs, size, speed, kind of a lanky guy, but I felt like he was one of those kind of blue chip athletes at that position that just hadn't had a lot of reps or in his career. And I think just given the opportunity in camp, he was running primarily with the 2s, but he can also be utilized in the return game. So good to see Tristan Jackson making it. And just one little side note, it feels kind of weird talking about he should have been cut, he should have been kept. I mean, these are real guys. Like, their whole life is this, getting cut, barely making a squad. That's like everything. It is everything. I bet they weren't sleeping a lot lately. So my heart really goes out to the guys that didn't make the cut, especially guys like John Kelly who've been on the team for a while. And who knows, is this the end of their football career? Does real life have to start now? So as good as it is for some guys, and as much as we're just talking about this guy made it, that guy didn't make it, there is a real human consequence at the end of this, which, I do feel for. Now, if we're going to and there's some notable wide receivers that were cut and didn't even make the practice squad. So I'll talk about that when we get to the practice squad. Offensive line, this one was interesting. I did not expect them to take 10. They took 10. So obviously we know that they kept Whitworth, Noteboom, Blythe, Havenstein, Corbett, Evans, Edwards, Allen, Ankrum, right? So that's 9. But they kept Coleman Shelton. And I thought Cole Cabral out of Arizona State would be the guy. I didn't feel Denby would make the active roster. He'd be on the practice squad, which he is. But Coleman Shelton is a guy you don't hear anything about. Nothing about Coleman Shelton. Coleman Shelton played at University of Washington. He played pretty much every position. He played left tackle, left guard, right guard, center. While he was there, he was first team All Pac-12 center. Then he was signed as a UDFA to San Francisco, cut at the end of camp, signed by Arizona, played there. He was there the next year, was cut at the end of camp, signed by the Rams last year to make the practice squad, was promoted, and he played in 11 games, getting first real game action versus the Browns, but he primarily played in special teams. I think he took snaps off as an offensive lineman in only 3 games, and I think the reason why he made the team is because his positional versatility, which we all know this as Rams fans. Cromer loves positional versatility. So the more positions you can play again on the offensive line, the better. And it's not like a jack of all trades, maybe master of none. And then also his familiarity with the offense. So he has a year under his belt compared to some of these other guys. So I think he's more of a Swiss Army knife, probably behind Evans and Edwards in that regard, but interesting that they kept him, because I don't know if he would have, basically every guy that the Rams keep that was on the bubble of cutting and putting on the practice squad or not means that the Rams thought that they would not clear waivers, that some other team would pick them up, so they wanted to guarantee that they had them. So they were thinking out of Cole Cabral and Jamil Denby and Coleman Shelton, that Coleman Shelton was the guy least likely to make it through waivers back to them for the practice squad. So that's interesting. But cool. Congrats, Coleman Shelton, for making the 53-man roster. So then defensive line, we'll move over to defensive line. Ashawn, even though he's injured, Brockers, Sebastian Joseph Day, Greg Gaines, Morgan Fox, and the longest shot of all long shots, in my opinion, I said Tristan Jackson, Xavier Jones, gave myself credit for that. But one guy I did not see making the team, I didn't even see him making the practice squad, is Eric Banks, saving Mr. Banks. Eric Banks went to the University of Texas San Antonio, and his college, if you just look at his stats, you don't even see him playing. You look at his stats, and he's a defensive end. Really? They don't jump out to you. I mean, I didn't know why they signed him to the team, and he had 7.5 sacks in over 48 games, 81 tackles and 20.5 tackles for a loss. I mean, he had a sack every 6.5 games, and sacks don't tell the whole story. You have pressures, you have hurries, and all these things. But I didn't get it, because all the other guys they brought in for the practice squad or to the team for OTAs and everything, they had robust college careers with stats that backed it up, and you understood, like Jonah Williams out of Weber State. And so I just didn't get it. I'm like, okay. But then you find out that he was the Rams defensive line coach, Eric Henderson. He was the coach at UT San Antonio when Eric Banks was there. So then you start connecting the dots. So a lot of these things, it's like who you know. Who knows you? Who knows what your work ethic is? Who knows what you're capable of? Who knows your build and your, all the tools you bring to the table. So apparently defensive line coach Henderson had buy-in on Eric Banks. And I feel that's how he made it, because this whole time in training camp, not one peep, I forgot Eric Banks was there. Apparently before training camp, he was working at fish and tackle store or something in Texas. So, I mean, listen, everyone's like, what the heck? Eric Banks makes the roster? Like, awesome. Way to go, Eric Banks. Like, that's just one of those stories. A guy off the street kind of makes the team. No one expects it. No one's talking about him, but the Rams see something in him. And once again, it's crazy because the Rams, by keeping him on the 53-man roster, thought he would not clear waivers. Like Bryce Perkins, Christian Rosenboom, guys that actually cleared waivers, but there was interest from other teams. Like, the Rams gambled on those guys coming back, but not on Eric Banks. To me, it's mind-blowing. So I'm really interested to hear about Coleman Shelton, about Eric Banks, and what the Rams and the position coaches thought of them and what they see in them. Because as a Rams fan, I'm just curious. I'm like, dude, is Eric Banks a secret weapon? Is Coleman Shelton like, I think it's really the versatility. But I mean, what are they seeing these guys? Because I'm sure they see something, and I don't doubt them. I mean, here's another thing. We as fans sit here and talk about, oh, I can't believe this guy didn't make it and that guy didn't make it, and what the heck? We didn't see anything. We haven't watched them practice, really scrimmage, nothing. So all of our outrage is based on just like some names and some stats and maybe some college highlights, but we don't see how they compete against other guys on the roster. So I can sit here and say, like, why didn't we keep Jonah Williams on the active roster? Why Eric Banks? And well, they will say because we saw them play again, compete, and this one was better than that one. So, we didn't. And it's a weird year because typically fans would be allowed to go to training camp, and you have your OTAs and all these things, and you have more time to see what the players have. So, anyways, Eric Banks, kind of crazy. So keep an eye out for Eric Banks. Now, where it gets juicy and where all the talk is inside linebacker. So there's a lot of inside and outside linebacker action going on. So let's dive in. So as we all know, Travon Howard hurt his knee, out for the year. That's a big blow to the inside linebacker position. We all knew Micah Kiser, if he stayed healthy, was the lead guy. So he stayed healthy. He is the lead guy. But who else? I mean, Kenny Young, Troy Reeder. No offense, but I mean, Kenny Young, we didn't see what he could do last year. So maybe he, when he was at UCLA, he was good. So maybe he's better than what he showed. A year in the defense under Staley, maybe he brings out the best in him. Troy Reeder didn't really play great football for the Rams last year, but he was a rookie, undrafted free agent. So let's maybe another year experience, and Troy, they see things in Troy Reeder, and perhaps he evolves and gets better. But who else do we got? Like, that's thin. We go from Corey Littleton to Micah Kiser and nothing. So what the Rams did is that they didn't keep on the active roster Christian Rosenboom, Daniel Batuli, Natrez Patrick, or Derek Moncrief. All those guys they waived, but then came back to the practice squad. But the fact that they're keeping those four guys on the practice squad means that, hey, anything can happen at linebacker. Still very fluid situation. I felt Christian Rosenboom would be a guy that they would keep on the roster potentially. So, but I think he'll be brought up and back and forth. I like Christian Rosenboom a lot. But going back to the active roster, so what they did is after all the cuts, they went and they got someone off of waivers, Justin Hollins from the Denver Broncos. Now, I think when people like myself always see names of players that are cut, and they go, oh yeah, this guy's amazing. Well, that guy was cut. Like, how amazing is that person? I think they're just guys that didn't get a chance to show everything they got, or it's like a crowded position group. And sometimes it's just circumstance, really, that holds a player back, and that's why they hit waivers. When Justin Hollins of the Broncos is available, I was like, oh my God, we just still got the steal of all time. And it's like, maybe, right? I'm hopeful. I want to temper my optimism. I don't want to just be fanboy crazy. It's so easy to be fanboy crazy. But so let's just talk about Justin Hollins. Justin Hollins was a 5th round pick last year by the Denver Broncos. Guess who was the defensive coordinator or the linebackers coach for the Denver Broncos last year? Brandon Staley, right? So this is just a guy bringing in his guy. So what happened is Hollins was the 5th round pick out of Oregon, where he played outside linebacker, okay? And at Oregon, he had 11 sacks in 2 years, 11 sacks and 25 and a half tackles for a loss. So, I mean, like, you compare that to Eric Banks, who was a defensive end, kind of outside linebacker-ish, and had 7.5 sacks. Okay, so it's like a major difference, especially playing at Oregon, like a power conference. So, anyways, he was the East-West Shrine Game defensive MVP. He had great college stats, flying all around. Now, what's really cool about him are the things you can't teach. 6'5", 248, a 4.5 40. Compare that to Micah Kaiser, a 4.66 40. Traven Howard, a 4.56 40. So he is faster, slightly faster than Howard was, but faster than Kaiser. So, but he's just like, if you look at the build, you look at the makeup, the physical traits, freak. So you've got that going for him. Now, what happened is that so last year when Bradley Chubb went down, he got a lot of run. But what Brandon Staley did with him as a rookie last year, he said, listen, I know you're an outside linebacker, but guess what? I'm going to teach you how to be an inside linebacker too. You don't really do that. You don't really just flip a position with a rookie like that. But he did it. He saw something in him. And Justin Hollins, from all accounts, is a bright guy. And so he had 267 snaps last year. I mean, he switched between outside linebacker, inside linebacker. And you know, there's a player that the Rams used to have who was an outside linebacker, morphed back into an inside linebacker. You might have heard of him. Our favorite, old friend, Corey Littleton, right? So Corey Littleton was sideline to sideline, going nuts. And with a 4.5 speed, granted that straight line, Justin Hollins could be that guy. But you know, Bradley Chubb comes back from an injury, and it's mainly because positional depth that he was not kept by the Broncos. 5th round pick from last year, Staley has a record with him, taught him how to play inside and outside, and you know, once again, positional versatility. So now everyone's saying Justin Hollins is going to start alongside Micah Kaiser, maybe at some point in time. But I mean, you know, I'm sure the defense he's going to at the Rams is very similar to what he had in Denver. And now he's going back with his boy, Brandon Staley. So Justin Hollins, let's keep an eye on Justin Hollins. Welcome to the Ramley, Justin Hollins. All right, so that was kind of like a nice little nugget, got me pumped up. Outside linebacker, I mean, the usual suspects, we've got Floyd, Ebukam, Obo, Terrell Lewis with the mystery knee situation. We're going to find out on Wednesday, so keep tabs on what's going on Wednesday. That's when the Rams and teams have to have their first injury report. So we'll see exactly what's going on with his knee. But I mean, like, I'm sending good vibes to you, Terrell Lewis, but I just don't feel optimistic about it because he had knee problems. He has an injury history. You know, who else do we have the last year and a half that had knee problems? That was just kind of a mystery. So I feel like we've been through this before, and I'm tempering my optimism once again on Terrell Lewis. But the surprise, maybe or not really, Jachai Polite. Jachai Polite, for all of you mock draft nuts out there like myself, 2 years ago, he was like, you know, early mock drafts, mocked in the first round from Florida, edge rusher, outside linebacker. And then he gets drafted, I think, in the 3rd round by the Jets. Then he gets cut by the Jets, you know, 3rd rounder. What? And he was like the raw talent guy, quick first step. And the Rams signed him and bring him into the practice squad. So he was on the Rams on their practice squad like all year last year. And then you just didn't hear anything about Jachai Polite. And I think he ran basically with that group, Floyd, Ebukam, Obo, Lewis, all during training camp, and he made the team. So if you look at like a raw talent, or if you look at someone's draft position as a marker of their talent or what teams think about them. He's a third rounder. The Rams have a third rounder as an outside linebacker, and if Lewis can't go for a couple weeks, then we might get some polite action. And also, who knows, maybe he performed well in special teams. So I'm kind of stoked to see Ja'Kai Polite on the Rams. And apparently it was like a work ethic thing. And I think, year being in the life and knowing the expectations, that he's really dedicated. And that's cool, Ja'Kai Polite. Defensive backs, really nothing to report here. All the same guys. Dante Dion is the only one, but he's on the practice squad. So Ramsey, Hill, Darius Williams, David Long Jr., Taylor Rapp, John Johnson, Terrell Burgess, and Kyle Fuller and Nick Scott. So a lot of special teams, but because Taylor Rapp was out for a lot of training camp, we got a lot of Fuller, got a lot of Burgess, and they performed very well. So I'm really happy with our secondary. And I think we kept 3 defensive backs on the practice squad: Dion, Juju Hughes, and Tyreek McGee. So I think we're set. Don't really have to talk about the secondary. Feeling good about that. And last but not least on the active roster, but then there's another thing I can't believe I forgot, but Samuel Sloane is the Rams kicker. 7th round pick out of Miami of Ohio, Sean McVay's alma mater. He, I think, kind of blindsided everyone by winning the job, because all you heard about was Liram Hiralahu was kind of outperforming everyone, most consistent in training camp, coming from the Canadian Football League, crosswinds, cold weather, key moments in games. And then Sam Sloane gets it. And Sam Sloane, sign of the times, he finds out that he made the team because when he showed up that day, when people are getting called into the office and, hey, we got to let you go, he got COVID tested. Why would he get COVID tested if he wasn't going to be on the team anymore? So when he got COVID tested, he's like, I guess I made the team. Pretty funny. So Sam Sloane, the reason why is because the last week he really came on strong, and they like his accuracy, and apparently he has the strongest leg between the 3 kickers, McGinnis and Hiralahu, and that also goes into kickoffs. Can you kick it out of the end zone, or can you place it better? Do you have the oomph? So Samuel Sloane, don't call him Sam. He prefers Samuel Sloane. Listen, I'm a Samuel Sloane fan. I want him to succeed, but I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit nervous. Week 1 against Dallas, Greg the Leg, okay? Samuel Sloane. How are you guys going to feel if it's a key moment, let's say even before the half, 3 seconds to go, 47-yarder, Samuel Sloane going to halftime, get an extra 3 points. I'm going to be like, so let's just all put positive vibes to Samuel Sloane. We want him to succeed, but that surprised me very much. Now, moving on to one of the things I forgot, Clay Johnston. I'm going to run through a freaking door. The guy who Brett Favre held as a football when he was a baby. He was waived, and the Rams would have signed him to their practice squad, but he decided to go to the Titans. His dad is the strength and conditioning coach. The Panthers. The Panthers. His college coach is from Baylor. Rule is the head coach. So it's like he knows his dad is there. His college coach is there. So, what better thing to do? So no ill will to Clay Johnston going to another team. I'm happy we had him for a little bit. Wish him all the best. So as the practice squad goes, like I mentioned, lots of linebackers. No Clay Johnston, but we do have Daniel Batuli out of Tennessee, Christian Rosenboom, Natrez Patrick, and Derek Moncrief. So a lot of insurance policy there for our linebackers. Defensive tackle, my favorite, Michael Hoyt, and then Marquise Copeland. Defensive end, Jonah Williams out of Weber State. Defensive back, Hughes, McGee, and Dion. Offensive line, Cole Cabral and Jamil Denby. Jamil Denby, great guy, but, I think he didn't show up enough. Wide receiver, this is a surprise to me. J.J. Koski. I mean, you look out there and you see him playing, you're like, is that Cooper Kupp? No, it's J.J. Koski out of Cal Poly. Right, Cal Poly. He beat out Aesop Winston Jr., Ernest Edwards. I thought Edwards it was between Edwards and Tristan Jackson as a 6 wide receiver, but Edwards didn't even make the practice squad. It was J.J. Koski. So very interesting move. I mean, all these guys like from super small schools. I mean, even, Edwards was as well, but yeah, kind of crazy on that one. And then QB, Bryce Perkins, so that's pretty cool. We have our third stringer. A lot of people are excited about Bryce Perkins. I'm glad he's back. And then tight end Kendall Blanton. So I didn't mention tight ends in the positional group because, I mean, it's Higbee, it's Everett, it's Munt, and it's Hopkins. And there was never any question about that. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. We need to, I think, cut a player from the active roster, put him on the practice squad because I think there's only 15 spots filled and 16 is the max. So I think we have one extra spot, so we'll just probably bump someone down. But yeah, I think this is super interesting. I don't know how a lot of this is going to play out because, a lot of these guys are unproven. A lot of these guys we haven't even seen play. So it's hard to make a prognostication based on, like everyone thought Clay Johnston was going to be, a real, eating up a lot of snaps at inside linebacker. He's not even on the team. So anything can happen. Anyways, that's it. I'm over 30 minutes. Don't want to take any more of your time. I'm going to have a couple more episodes dropping. Like I said, if you made it all the way to the end here, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. Let me know what you think about what the Rams have done with the roster. Subscribe to the channel. Turn your notifications on. Follow me on Instagram, LA Rams Talk, Twitter, Real LA Rams Talk, Fan to Fan Network, all of these things, since I know everyone has so much time on their hands. But stay tuned this week, going to be dropping a lot of content. And yeah, let me know what you think. Most important thing, keep those comments flowing. I appreciate all of you. And as always, go Rams.